Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of What's Happening. I'm George Binns, and I'm here with my co-host, Gail Burke. And we're continuing our series on discussions with the candidates. This evening we have with us Brian DePeace, who is a candidate for, as it says on the crawl, the Councilor at Large. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm a big fan of the show.
Good.
Thank you.
We can always use a commercial. So, what made you run?
My children first, my taxes second, and the community third.
Well, what about your children? Because the school committee normally has the education side of the game, and city council gets some input, but not a heck of a lot.
Mostly just the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a child with special needs.
Okay.
My second child, Nikki, he's 4 years old. He goes to the intensive integrated preschool program at the McEwen School.
Mm-hmm.
So the number one reason why I'm running is to advocate for children with special needs and a fair public education for them.
Okay. So, what do you think about the taxes? Not enough?
Taxes, I think we could maybe flatline. Specifically, real estate taxes. They've gone up exponentially over the past 5 or 6 years here in Beverly. And I think that we can create alternative sources of income for the community and maybe flatline the residential tax rate.
Well, taxes usually get driven by spending, so how do you control the spending?
One of the things I want to do is put solar panels on top of most all of the public buildings. We can cut costs that way. When you cut costs, you cut expenses.
Yeah.
What's the cost of doing that?
I have no idea, but you would be leasing that equipment. You would be selling the energy back to the providers of the to the owners of the panels.
So you're advocating a purchase power type of agreement as opposed to buying the solar panels outright.
I'm not sure about that yet because you have to look at what the contracts look like when the proposals are coming. You know, if I don't get elected and we don't go forward with this, and maybe in 2 years if I run again, we'll look at it again. Maybe the technology has changed. So, but as of right now, I think we have to wait to see, what happens with this idea and what's being offered to the community. Would it be purchasing the panels and moving forward, or whether it be leasing and in turn selling the power?
As you go around the city, have you found any support for this?
Yes, but it's mixed. A lot of people don't know what to think about it. It's new to them, so it's kind of a new topic.
Well, they have the solar panels that
they're on the high
supply energy to the high school, but I don't know. We hear different versions of how much it actually saves or how much power is actually generated. Do you know?
I don't.
No.
I don't. That would be determined by the whole feasibility process.
Yeah,
We first have to determine whether the building in question can support solar panels. A lot of these public buildings are older, and they weren't built, to hold things on the roof. So you never really know until you look into it.
The middle school is not putting solar panels on it yet for no economic benefit to the school. And you get into the game with them, it's what level of efficiency do you have in the building? And the middle school met the efficiency requirements and exceeded them without solar panels. But the mayor has also got a program that what used to be the dump of the fly ash from Salem is now a big solar field, so it's a mixed story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I am getting mixed reviews on it, though. I mean, it's not a positive negative. It's more of a what's the benefit versus what's the cost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. The way it turns down right now is if you're a commercial company, you can get tax benefits for installing it. So as long as the subsidies are there, the economics point you in the direction of, well, we'll have a purchase power agreement. We will essentially lease the equipment. And the neat thing about that is when the solar panels die in 10 to 20 years, they come and take them away and replace them.
Yep.
as opposed to having to buy a new set. But that gets into the very interesting game of how much longer is the government going to have subsidies for this kind of stuff. But that's a situation beyond the city's limits.
That's right.
Yeah.
I want to change the subject a little bit because, and we've asked the other candidates about sanctuary cities.
Okay,
And we know that Salem has a ballot question about whether or not to become a sanctuary city. In Beverly, of course, you know that the schools are sanctuary schools,
Yep.
but the city is not.
okay.
So if you were elected, how would you vote if it came to a vote?
It's a good question. It's an ordinance, and ordinances aren't changing existing laws. So it's something you have to look at constructively, but I haven't seen the ordinance yet. So it's hard for me to tell you whether I would be in favor of something that I haven't physically seen, what it's all about.
Well, basically, it's about providing sanctuary for
Yeah.
anybody, including people who are in this country illegally. And I know that there's some discussion about whether or not it's going to change anything. Well, some people feel it isn't, and others feel that, yeah, there are some repercussions, particularly because a lot of the illegals, immigrants, are not vetted properly before they come into the country.
Raises a whole separate concern. It's more of a national topic, but here in Beverly, through my door knocking process, I haven't spoken to one single person in Beverly who has heard of an incident where the Beverly police has stopped somebody and recommended them to be deported.
Well, a lot of times people don't hear about them, but,
I get the
I
feeling
I think that
something like that we
Beverly-
would have heard of in Beverly.
I think, well, not necessarily. I think that sometimes living out in the burbs, as we do, what occurs in Boston or even some other suburbs never get reported. So you think that you're safe from all of this, and in reality, you're not.
I think the important thing to keep in mind with the sanctuary city topic is when you're a city councilor, you're one of 9 individuals. And your vote is the voice of the people that you're talking to, not so much what your personal values are. That's one of the other facets of this particular topic that makes it hard for me to tell you whether I would be in favor of something or not, because most of the people, believe it or not, that I've spoken to, and I've knocked on about 3,000 doors so far, most of the people have no idea what I'm talking about. They really have no clue.
I know.
So I think what happened in Salem, I think it was the right thing to do, was to put it to a vote amongst the people and not the city council. Because that way, when they look at their ballot on November 7th, they'll be able to read the ordinance and they'll be able to choose whether they are in favor, yes or no. And then,
So that's
know.
what you would prefer?
I'm not sure that I would prefer that because I haven't read the ordinance. I haven't read the proposal yet. But, if I were to make the decision today, answer that question, I think that would be the fair thing for the community, would be to put it on the ballot and have the community speak as a whole, instead of 9 individuals speaking for the community.
Well, that changes the character of the government a bit, because now you're getting away from being a representative government, you being
That's a
the
very good point.
representative of everybody in Beverly,
It's a very good point.
to more of a democracy, which this country is not. This surprises all sorts of people. But then if you're going to do that, that implies you've got to come up with some sort of educational program to explain, what does this ordinance mean? So I think it's going to be incumbent upon the city council, if they go that way, to say, okay, we're going to start 2-3 months in advance of the election with a very explicit description of what is it we're going to propose to do and what's the implications of it. And I think, from my point of view, I don't think anybody does understand what the implications of the sanctuary school district is. And we've had that for almost a year now. So,
I can confirm that is accurate from the people that I've spoken to.
yeah. different subject, but you're in the real estate business, and reading some of your comments in the paper and background, we were talking before, and I know from reading the blogs, there's a lot of talk about Rantoul Street, the number of apartments going up, the continuing building process. Where does this all go, and what's your impression of how far should we go on with this business of being transportation-oriented with all the railroad stations in town?
Well, I think as of right now, we have enough development on Rantoul Street, or really anywhere near the train station. We have a development that's just being completed right across the street from the train station. We have the Ford dealership, which is a year or two away, and we have
Yeah.
the old Friendly site, a place I used to work at when I was in high school, probably halfway there at this point. And then we have another development right on the same parcel of land as the MBTA garage
Yeah.
as well. We have an awful lot of new units coming in. And I think we have to assess the impact on the community of those units in two different areas. First would be new traffic. How does new traffic affect parking downtown? How does new traffic affect the businesses downtown? Personally speaking, I have a lot of clients that own businesses on Rantoul Street and on Cabot Street, and frankly, they've been suffering because of all of the detours and road closures and whatnot. Yeah. And if we proceed with the waterfront, I think it's going to put some people out of business. I really think that they've had enough of these detours and lack of parking and whatnot. We really need to take a look at who's moving into these apartment buildings. Are they going to be driving? Is the city planner accurate in his assessments of percentages of people that will be driving and won't be driving? You never can tell until you factually see things happening.
And also, what is the impact going to be on the schools as far as children moving in?
I think
Right now, I know that the classes are pretty small.
Yeah.
So maybe not, but it might depend on the ages of the children that are moving in. Are there going to be too many in the high school? Are there going to be too many in the elementary schools or the middle school? So, I don't know how the city planner, how he goes about assessing that. Maybe it's very difficult, but with all the new development, you have to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, it's largely done by number of bedrooms per unit, and I don't think he's very far off with children and his assessments there. But I am concerned with traffic, and I'm more concerned with the impact that all of these housing units have on our natural resources. More people taking showers per day, more people flushing toilets per day. We were one of the only communities on the North Shore that never had an issue with our water supply a couple of summers ago when we had a historic dry summer. I don't think that we have that luxury with what's being developed downtown right now, compounded with what they want to do with River Street. And then there's a third issue with wanting to develop the waterfront. We have 70 acres of land up on Folly Hill that will also impact, and that will definitely impact our school system. There is no question about that. Anywhere between 500 and up to 800 apartments. There is no question in my mind that that's going to impact our
Are they going to have that
our school
many? I thought
system.
they had scaled it down somewhat.
No one can really tell because the whole development, from what I understand, is actually gone to the level of litigation.
Oh, is that right?
That's from what I understand. I'm not quite sure if
I
that's
haven't
100%
followed
accurate.
it that closely.
I'm
so
following
I
it
don't know.
a little bit. The property owners have effectively taken the property off the market and to try to settle some city business before they market the property again, from what I understand.
The last thing I heard on that one was that the owners put in a zoning permit request. They said, we want to develop the entire area. And once they do that, it resets the clock on whether they can make a change or not. The city can rezone it. So they have sort of locked in the old zoning, which said they can develop the entire area.
They have. They have. I believe that period to be 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Now, the important thing to remember about the Folly Hill development is that it is a special zoning. It's the only parcel in the city of Beverly that has that zoning code. And it was an agreement that was made between the property owners right now, this family that owns the property, and the city. And in my opinion, the city is breaking their agreement by trying to prevent them from developing this parcel. I'm not for them developing this parcel to this magnitude, but an agreement is an agreement. And from what I understand, the city did in fact make that agreement. So they do have a right to build what they have a right to build. And I think that it is going to adversely affect our, especially our school enrollment.
Yeah, well, the way it works with the state, when they come up with a formula as to how much money they're going to put into the school project, they also set the limit on the number of pupils. And from what I understand with the middle school, the day it opens, it's going to be right up to capacity, and the next kid that shows up is beyond the design capacity of it. And yeah, you can squeeze kids in here, and you can change class sizes, and you can manipulate it a little bit, but the reimbursement from the state and the negotiations with the state are always after the fact. So that implies there's going to be a time period where there's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth over class sizes and what kind of courses can you offer. Which gets me to another point. It's a very interesting article you and I talked about the other day with Peabody High School getting into more vocational training. They're doing a couple of medical assistant programs, and it seems like they're sort of stepping on the toes of the North Shore Regional Tech, or the Essex Aggie, whatever you know it as, by going beyond what their charter really is at the high school level.
Well, they're negotiating that so that they try not to step on the toes
Yeah,
of the
they try to do
Essex
something. But
Tech.
one of the points that we had a discussion with a previous candidate was there's 300 kids on a waiting list to get into North Shore Regional Tech. They ain't never going to get there.
Yeah.
It just is not the space. So again, the influence of the city council on the school committee. Would you be willing to sort of take them on and try to say, hey guys, we got to go back, to, maybe not to get to another patent trade school, but we've got to do more in STEM, STEAM, vocational training. Where do you think the balance is between college education and?
It's a good question. I wouldn't even know where to begin. I wasn't aware that the city of Peabody was doing that,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure if there's any issues in the city of Beverly. I haven't even had the discussion with anyone
Well,
on
has
the
it
school
come up
committee
with
about
any of
this.
your knocking on the doors?
Nothing at
No.
all.
Okay.
Nothing at
Well,
all.
if you've got 300 kids on a waiting list, then that's certainly an issue in the city of Beverly,
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
you know. And I think a lot of people don't pay much attention to the vocational school because they're either not aware of how important vocational education is, or it doesn't get much press, so that people just don't really think about it unless they have children involved. But the parents that do have children, especially the ones that are on the waiting list, you know, what are they going to do? You know?
I went to a presentation at the school with the Beverly Rotary Club, and it was very impressive. It's a gorgeous school. It really
yeah,
is. It's
certainly
absolutely gorgeous, and the number of communities it serves is just amazing.
Oh, yeah.
It is. It's
They've done a
great
marvelous
school.
job at the
Yeah.
school, but the
It's just
problem
not
is
enough.
Not enough, yeah.
Yeah.
The people I'm talking to in the community have, they're already telling me that the high school, the brand new high school, is already too small. Specifically teachers. I've talked to a handful of teachers, and they're all telling me the school is already too small.
Yeah, well, that was a given when it was built.
Yeah.
So
They don't let
now
you
what do you
build any
do?
capacity in for anticipated enrollment.
No.
And we're back to the question again of if we develop Folly Hill or more on Rantoul Street, or one of the things that bothers me is the previous mayor, Scanlon, was making a point that Beverly is unique in that we've got 5 railroad stations. And we're already doing an awful lot of work around the railroad station downtown to make it accessible for walking to and from your apartment to the railroad station. Do we continue this on the other railroad stations and essentially have little clusters of apartment houses around town? From a perspective of the real estate, what do you think that works out to be?
I haven't heard any discussion about that. I don't think Mayor Cahill has made any representations
hasn't
or
got
anything.
into it all, no.
Yeah, he's been in office, I think 4 years now, 2 terms.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've heard him discuss that once. So it's probably something that's off the table.
Is that something that you would be willing to bring up if you were elected?
I am pro-development, but we need to take a very careful look at traffic and our natural resources and, of course, the impact of our schools first. This is the first I've heard of it, so I don't know what to say. You know, I've been living here since 1990. I've never heard once someone say that the mayor wants to put apartments up by Montserrat train station. I've just never heard that before, so
Okay.
I'm not even sure where apartments would go.
I was reading something in the paper today, and it concerned me somewhat because it concerns Gloucester Crossing
Okay?
and the fact that the traffic is being directed in different ways.
Yeah,
No left turn,
And,
they're saying.
yeah.
The mayor was never informed about this, which I thought was rather bizarre.
Yeah.
But because the state paid for it, they didn't feel it was necessary.
To discuss it with the mayor, yeah.
Yeah, I
thought
mean,
that was-
that's like,
I think
okay,
bizarre is the right word there.
we're giving you money, so
Yeah.
we're going to do what we want.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
technically, it's a state highway.
yeah.
So
It is.
therefore
It's
they-
Route 1A, it's a
well,
state highway.
That's
yeah.
the pluses and minuses. Because it's a state highway, the state pays for it.
Yes.
That's nice. But,
There are consequences.
yeah.
They
there's a-
said in
they're
the
right there,
report-
the requirements on
Yeah.
the back of the check.
They said in the report that there is 8 cars an hour, 6 to 8 cars, I think it was 6 to
Wow.
8 cars an hour to take a left turn there.
Yeah.
I've been
I
there
take
when
left
there's
turns
more
there all
than
the
8
time.
there,
Yeah.
plenty more.
Maybe
Yeah.
they're trying to get people to take a left at Lennox Street, but I feel bad for the businesses, specifically at the newly redeveloped Cornerstone Plaza there. You know, there's maybe 4 or 5 brand-new tenants that have retail shops.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you
they've
see, these
invested
are
in
things that
downtown
are never
Beverly.
taken into consideration. And I would think that the city council would be able to step in and make an issue out of it.
I agree 100%. I just don't know if 8 cars an hour is an accurate assessment.
Well, I would
think I would need
question
to.
that.
I think I would need to
Yeah.
question that one
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right, you know, these businesses, there are consequences to it, and if the businesses start to suffer, I mean, you're just redeveloping it to
Yeah.
encourage business.
Yeah.
And yet, the
Yeah.
traffic isn't allowing for
We
it, so
put
that's a
3
problem.
brand new retail tenants in at that corner within the past 2 months, and 1 more coming in, I would say, in the next 2 or 3 months. And the 3 that have signed leases under the understanding that it would be two-way traffic, and that it would be a prominent intersection. And
Do
now
they
you-
have any recourse?
No.
I don't think
No?
so. Yeah. So.
Wow,
Yeah.
Like I said, they have an understanding, but they don't have it in writing.
yeah.
So it's not part of their contract. And besides, the lease with the owner of that corner can't guarantee the traffic either.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
not at all.
That's,
Not at all.
we're getting back to the question about what does the city really look for when they say that we want a vibrant downtown area or a vibrant community? If we're going to build up all these apartments, and one of the things that gets me is if you're living in the apartment and you only got 1 car because you only got 1 parking space, this is the one the Ford redesign. How do you get groceries? There isn't a grocery store downtown. There
Closest
is-
one is Stop and Shop.
Yeah. I can't see anybody schlepping 2 weeks' worth of groceries
No.
from Stop and Shop very often.
Yeah.
You know,
It's not
so-
that far, but you
Like I said,
cannot.
we really have
do
to
that.
take a look at who moves in and are the projections accurate?
Or how do we get some sort of transportation system working much more effectively. I know when I go to shop at Market Basket, there's the bus from Brooksby comes there, and there's a bus from a few other places that brings the people there once in a while. At the senior center, you can have a sign up. There's a once a week kind of thing where the senior center will take a busload of people to different shopping areas. So something is being done for some areas.
Well, we do have the CATA. We do have the bus service in downtown Beverly. I think maybe we just need to take a look at the route.
How often does that run? I mean, I
don't
very
know.
rarely have seen the Cater bus.
I,
And I used to live in Gloucester, and I used to see it all
Yeah.
the time, but when I
Yeah.
moved to Beverly, I didn't.
Before I bought my
Haven't seen
house
it.
on Dartmouth Street in 2012, I lived on Elliott Street next to the new CVS, that little stucco condominium building there.
Yeah.
I lived there for 9 years. I would see the bus go by repeatedly every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
No,
it's a
that's
very
major-
well used,
major drag.
it's a very well used service, and I just think maybe taking a look at the route could benefit.
I can't imagine Cater buses on Cabot Street, though.
Well, yeah. Well,
that would
Rantoul
be a
Street is where
hassle
all the
getting
new
through there.
developments are.
Yeah,
Rantoul is where.
Or Rantoul
yeah,
Street either.
Yeah.
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 You know, I mean, it's nice to have all these restaurants on Cabot Street, but, you know, when you want to go to them, parking is a problem.
Yeah, I've never had a problem parking downtown, and I work downtown a lot, and I work in a lot of downtowns. I
Yeah.
just haven't had a problem finding a parking
Yeah,
spot.
that's the other big thing that's happening right now. They had a big parking study and found out that there's considerable parking in the downtown area if you don't want to park at the curb for the store that you want to
Yeah.
go visit.
Yeah,
you can
If you're
park in
willing
the
to
back.
walk some distance.
Yeah.
yeah,
And now we're getting into the game of, okay, we need to change the parking meters and charge more for very desirable places to drive people to the less desirable ones. So if you get on the city council, brace yourself, that one's coming.
Well, our time is almost up, Brian.
Okay.
So if you would like to give a closing statement, feel free. We have about a minute and a half.
Oh, okay. Maybe I could review with you some bullet points that I have as to why I want to run for city council.
Okay?
I don't think we need to get into a biography or anything like that. I
Yeah.
just think maybe, okay. As a city council, I will advocate for children with special needs, as we discussed earlier, for
Yeah.
a fair public education. I will advocate for seniors and affordable living options for them. One of the things I want to do in the city of Beverly is, when the Briscoe School is vacated, I'd like the city to keep that parcel of land. It's 6.5 acres of land, and it's right in the center of downtown. I think selling it is maybe the worst idea that we could do. I think what we could do there is we could divide the lot into, we can put up a new public a safety facility, a police station and whatnot. It's more walkable than the front of the Cummings Center is. It's also more safe for children to get to the police department. And that Briscoe School could be land leased to a nonprofit organization that could create senior housing right there on that site. It's very close to the hospital. It's very close to the senior center, and it's close to the downtown foot traffic. So you'll be really safe for the seniors. I think it's something we really need to pursue.
And
Okay,
there's
well-
parking around it, too.
Yeah.
Well, 6.5 acres, I would think that there's parking.
Oh, you can take over the old bus depot.
Yeah.
Well,
school
our
bus
time
depot.
is just
Okay,
about up.
sure.
So we want to thank you for coming.
Thank you for
And
having me.
good luck.
Thank you very much.
And we want to thank the viewers for watching. And we will continue with our interviews next week, one this week and two next week. Two, or is it three?
Do next week, yeah.
Okay, two next week. And then it's election day. So again, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.